Okay. So what we want to do here is we're going to reverse an array. So we're going to say let array, or we're going to say R equal, and let's just do, we'll do 2, 5, 3, 6, 9, 4, 7, 2, 6. Well, that's probably too big. We'll do this. Okay. So we want to basically write a function that reverses an array. Okay. So if we've got this array right here, what is the first step? We've talked a little bit about, let's pretend that we're in a job interview. And your interviewer says, okay, let's go ahead and write a function that reverses an array. What is going to be our first step? What are we going to do? Are we just going to jump straight into the code, or what do we want to do here? Write it down. Yeah. Do you remember what it's called, Tuba, when we write it down? Like you brain something? Close. It's called pseudocode. Pseudocode. Cool. So what do we want to do? What is our function going to do? It's going to definitely need to take in an array, right? And so maybe we'll say write a function that takes in. Anytime you hear takes in, like takes in, there's other like keywords. That just means that the parameter is going to be an array. Okay, so write a function that takes in an array. Once we do that, what are we going to do? We want to reverse this function. Oh, we want to reverse this array. What is something we can do to do that? What's our first step? You guys don't all jump at once here. What are some key things that we've learned? I guess we could say.
If else statement.
An if else statement? Yeah, that's definitely going to so we can say things at our disposal. Disposal. So we have a if else. Do you remember what that's called, Jacob? What kind of statement is it?
So you cut out a little bit what?
I said, do you remember what it's called? What kind of statement it is? If the if else is called a conditional. Okay. We said we're gonna loop. Why are we going to loop? So Roberta says loop through the array from the last element to the first element. Okay. We're gonna start at the back. Okay, we can do that. So we have a loop. We're gonna use a loop. We might use a conditional. Okay. So I'm gonna put that down here. So we're gonna write a function, and then we're saying that we want to create a for loop that starts from the back. Okay. We can try that. And then once it starts, what are we going to do? So Carrie said there's a way to call the last element an array, something like -0 or something. So usually like in Python, you can do -1. I think JavaScript, like the brand new JavaScript just came out with something. I can't remember what it is, but you can't inherently say like -1. Like if Python, if I said, R of -1, it's going to get me this. If I say R of -2, it's going to get me this. That's in Python. JavaScript, I think the brand new JavaScript does it, but we don't definitely use that right now. So we're gonna start from the back, but there is a way, Carrie, if you remember, we can. So we're gonna save it in a new array. So one of it is going to be, I'm gonna say in place. Meaning that we don't want to create a new array, Roberta, because that would be great, right? So we could do it two ways. So I'm going to say in place and in a new array. So let's do in a new array first. Cool. So we're going to create a for loop that starts from the back. And then as we iterate through and add to new array. Perfect. Okay. So we've got our array here. We're going to write a function. So I'm going to say function new reverse. I'm going to do new rev r for new reverse array that takes in my array. So we're going to call it. We can call it anything we want. And then we're saying we want to create a for loop. So I'm going to say for let I equal z. Well, what is I going to equal here? We said we wanted to get it from the back and we can't do like -1. So what could we do? Six. We could do 6, Lucas, but is that dynamic? What if I do 6 here? But then all of a sudden another array comes in and it's got this. That's not going to be the very back, right? So yeah, I'm seeing it in lecture, or sorry, in here we can say my array. So it's not R. Remember, whenever this might be called R, but it is referred to as my array. So we can say my array dot length -1. Remember, my array dot length is going to give me how many items are in here, and then the -1 is going to give me this last position. Perfect. When do we want to end? What's our condition here? Yeah, when I is equal to 0. Do we want to do I is equal to 0, or do we want to do I is less than 0? Because if I is 0, we still want that last one, right? Yeah, let's do that. And then what is our step going to be? I minus minus, right? Because we want to decrement. Perfect. Okay. So we're iterating through. I is just a number. So if I'm starting from the back, what is my next step here?
Is that a condition?
We don't need a condition right now. I don't know that we'll actually need a conditional, right? Because we're not checking to see if it is anything and only on a certain condition. We're just trying to flip them. And so right now we're just here. We've got, I is 7. Push. Yeah, exactly, Caroline. What are we pushing to? So I agree, we do need to push, but what are we pushing to? Carrie said it, create the new array and push the value of I. Do I want to do the new array in here? Say let new array. And then say new array dot push. And then am I pushing I? Is that what you're saying, Carrie? What do you guys think would happen here? Carrie says yes, but when the function's done, we'll be able to still use new array. Depends. So if I do this, what's going to happen? Anybody else have anything? Okay, so we have new R of I. I think that's a better one, right? I want to get Is it new R of I? Remember, new R is here, right? We just created it. I want to push, but I want to grab the value from this. In my function, what represents this array? My array, yeah, exactly. So we're going to say, remember, my array. So we're going to new array push my array of I. Okay. So it's good. We're here. We have my array length. Once I is less than 0. And I minus minus. I don't know why it said that it's never going to reach it, because it will. Okay. Now there's one big flaw here that I can see. Anybody see what would happen? Let's do our little T diagram. Sorry, guys, I don't know why something's stuck in my throat. So our little T diagram, where we're going to have this right here. I is currently my array dot length. Let's say we call this in. So I is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 minus 1. So I is 6. Perfect. So when we enter into this, it's going to say my array, or I equals my array dot length minus 1, which is 6, right? I less than 0. Is that true? Yes, it is. So let's enter in. We create our new array. I'm just going to say int A for new array. And its value is an empty bracket, right? It's an empty array. Then what we're going to do is we're going to push my array of I. So we're going to go into my array, and we're going to pretend like we call the function and pass this in to go all the way to 6. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we're going to push what is represented as 7 into my array. So what my array is going to then mean is it is no longer empty, but it's now 7. Right? Perfect. Then we come up here and we say I minus minus. So this becomes 5. But then,
Why did we do -1?
I'm sorry,
Why did we do -1?
because we're starting here and we're wanting to come, we're reversing. And so the idea that was thrown out was like we can -1. And so now when we say I have 5, it's going to be here. And then I have 4, I have 3. I have
No,
2.
I mean like after the my array dot length. Like go up, like the second part of the four. Yeah, why did we do -1, right? Is that what you're explaining?
Right here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what this is doing is this is saying, okay, because JavaScript doesn't have a great way to just target specifically this end value, like in Python, you could just say -1.
Uh-huh.
And then that would mean that gets you. So these are 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, right? In Python,
6.
instead of just saying, index 6, I could say -1, -2, and it would do the same thing. -2 and 5 would get you the same number. We can't do that in JavaScript right now. Right?
Okay.
So the only way is we know that since there's the length of this is 7, because there's 7 items in here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. But though there's 7 items, the last one, its index position is 6, right?
Uh-huh.
And so we know that the index of the last item is always 1 less than the length of that array. So we say array.length, which is 7, -1. And so when we say my array of I, that gets us our last one.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. Then what we want to do is we want to go from the last one to the next one, right? To 4. Well, if I subtract, that gives me 5, right? Which is this index. And then 4. And this is the way we're going. Then 3, then 2, then 1, then 0. Right? So that's why we're doing the minus here.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. So we get to this point where I is now 5, right? But then we get to this let new array. Because we're in our for loop, right? Because it checks and says, is 5 less than 0? It's not less than, is it? Because that condition's not going to be true. So we kind of flipped that, right? I didn't even catch that. That's why this was saying it's decremented. Because the first time it's going to say is, hey, is 6 less than 0? No, it's not. Right? 6 is greater than 0. There we go. If this is true, then it comes in. Greater than or equal to 0. There we go. Yeah, thanks, Tuba. Cool. So now that we fixed that, right? I is still 5, right? Because we decremented. Now here on line 12, because we enter our for loop, this is a redeclaration. So instead of being 7, we're redeclaring it as an empty array. And wiping it out. Yeah, Carrie, and then wiping it out, right? And then we're going to say, because I is still 5, then we say new array push my array of I, which is 5, which is 4. So then it's going to push, and now we're going to have 4 in here. Then we're going to come up here, I minus minus, it's going to be 4. Is 4 greater than or equal to 0? It is. Okay, perfect. We come in here. Oh, we rewrite this. So then we get rid of this and say, nope, no 4 in there. It is now just an empty bracket. And it's going to keep doing that up until you get to the last one where like you don't, this is no longer true and it doesn't enter and wipe it out. So it'll always just be, 2 is all you're going to see. So yeah, that's really important. You never, ever, ever really want to, unless like if you're going to use it outside or you need to keep track of some information, you never want to declare a variable inside of a for loop, right? Because it's always going to be rewritten every time. Now, sometimes if you're just using a temporary thing, then you can, but we want to keep track of this, right? We want to keep track of our new array. So let's just come here. Now, when we do this, because it's declared, we can push it. And then it's just going to be persistent, right? Because this is a global variable, so it can be called in the scope. We have access to it. Now we're good to go. So this will do it, right? Then at the end, we just need to either console log or we'll just console.log. That's fine. New array. And so if I run this, we got to call our functions. I'm going to say new rev r. We're going to pass in r. Perfect. Now if I run this, that's going to get me 7, 4, 9, 6, 3, 5, 2, 7, 4, 9, 6, 3, 5, 2. Okay, perfect. So this worked, right? We were able to reverse our array. We started at the back. We decremented all the way until we got greater than or equal to 0. Eventually it would get to -1 and it's going to say, hey, is I greater than or equal to 0? No, it's not because it's -1. It leaves my for loop. We console log the new array and then we're done. Cool. Great job. Now, knowing what we know, let's write something that is in place. So what in place means is, let me backtrack a little bit. If you're dealing with this, you're going to learn something called time and space complexity. Really from a high level, we're not going to dive in. It's way too high level right now, or way too sort of in depth for what your knowledge is at the moment. All time and space complexity means is how long did it take to run and how much memory or space did it take up? Here, because this would be what we call O of n. And again, I'm not going to go sort of into it, but you can just think that if our array gets bigger, the bigger our array is, the longer it's going to take, right? Because we have to iterate through no matter what. So if the array is in values, meaning however large, if it's small, then it's going to be quick. And the larger it gets, the longer it's going to take to run because we have to iterate through all of them. But one thing to note is we're creating a new value here, right? And so this is going to affect our space complexity because we're now adding in space. Now you might ask or be asked, how do we do it in place? And all in place means is instead of creating a brand new array, how do we just manipulate the original array? How do we manipulate the original array? Okay. So I'm going to take this. We're going to do it again, but now we're going to do it in place, meaning that we're not going to create a new array. We're just going to use some fun stuff. Okay. So we're doing our pseudocode. So I still need to iterate. So write a function. Function that takes in an array. We know that. Iterate through the array. I want to swap values. And that's all I'm going to put right now because we're going to kind of walk through and brain tease and figure out in the next 19 minutes, how can we do this? So I got, I'm going to say function new R IP. I'm going to say for in place takes in an array. So some array, some R. Oops. Okay. So we want to iterate through this thing, right? And so I'm going to say for, I'm going to say let J equal 0, because we're going to start at the beginning. Okay. J equals 0. We want to iterate all the way through. We'll sort of see. So let's do I is greater than some or dot length. And then we'll do I plus plus. Great. Okay. So we're iterating through, and let's say we're starting at 0. What am I wanting to? I'm wanting to swap these values. I want 2 to come here, and I want this to come here. Right? So let's just kind of break it down at the beginning. If I wanted, let's just forget about the second part. I wanted this last value here to be this to be 2. So I wanted it to say 2, 5, 3, 6, 9, 4, 2. How would I do that? Pull it and push again. We're not gonna, so we only will push if we have a new array, right? Think about, let's kind of forget this for loop for right now. If I just wanted to target specifically this value and change it, how would I do that? Just if, let's say we just had this array and I wanted to change this to a 2. How would I do that? How would I even get this value? If I just wanted to console log it. Yeah. So I see a couple things in chat. Yeah. So what I can say is right now, if we're just dealing with this one, I could say something like, R of, R dot length minus 1 equals R of 0, right? And if I do this, now if I say console.log R of R dot length minus 1, if I do this, we should get, actually, let's just do way easier so we can visualize it. Do this. Cool. To do this right here. Cool. So I've got 2, 5, 3, 6, 9, 4, 7, right? That's the first one. Perfect. And then I've got 2, 5, 3, 6, 9, 4, 2, right? Because I reassigned this value. But I reassigned the 7 and I said, no, I want it to be equal to whatever this is here. Okay, so we can reassign values. Now, can anybody see an issue if I just do that? If I just say, okay, well, you know, some are, yeah, exactly, Roberta. We will lose it, right? If I just say some are dot length -1 equals some r of I, right, which is 0, it will change it, but Roberta's right. We've lost the 7, right? So what could I do here? Yeah, exactly. What if I just said let temp equal some r of some r dot length -1. Okay. So now whenever I change that value to 2, I still have this 7 value. So we've accomplished this. We put the 2 back here. Now the second part of it is I need to take the 7 and put it up here. So that's pretty easy now, right? Because we have that value. So what would I do? I've already changed the 7. So now I need this to become 7 here. And based on what we did here, let's maybe just flip that. Right? I could say some r of I, which is 0, equals temp. Right? Let's T diagram it just so that way we understand. Right now, J is equal to 0. Right? Temp is equal to some R of the length -1, which we know is the last one. So I'm going to say temp is equal to 7. Now we're saying, hey, this last one is equal to some R of 0, which is 2. So now we're changing that value to 2. And so temporarily, what my array is saying is 2, 5, 3, 6, 9, 4, 2, right? Because I overwrote the 7. On line 41, it says, after line 41 and it's done running, it's 2, 5, 3, 6, 9, 4, 2. But then on line 42, I say, hey, this one of I, which is 0, so this guy, is equal to temp, and temp is 7. So now, after line 42, temp is 7. So now we have flipped these two. Cool. Now we need to iterate through. So J is now 1. So it is this one right here, right? But how could I iterate the opposite side? Because right now it's temp is just this last one. So how could I go 1 over this way? I also realized that I called this J equals 0 and then everything else is I. So sorry about that. And I'm really off on my, not greater than or equal then. Okay. What is keeping track of my steps in my array? What value in my T diagram is keeping track of my steps? Change this back to I, right? And I'm wanting the temp to go from 7 to 6, right? So I'm decrementing by 1, which I just happens to go up by 1. So what if I said something like this? So now I'm saying, hey, the temp is sum r of sum r dot length minus 1 minus whatever I is. And so now as I increases, we will also go this way, right? And so this right here will get us, if we just walk through the first couple, or T diagram, I is equal to 0. Temp is sum r dot length, which was 7, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, minus 1, which is 6, right? So this is 6 minus I is 0. So 7 minus 1 minus 0 is 6, right? Perfect. This is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Perfect. So we can get this last one. Then we swap. Make the first one from here. We swap again. This one comes here. I increments up. So now it's 1. Temp, we're redefining it. So in this case, we're wanting temp to keep track, right? We're at sum r dot length minus 1, which we found out 6, minus I, which is now 1. So now it's 5. No, that's right here. It swaps. I becomes 2. We do the whole thing again. Then it becomes 7 minus 1 minus 2, which is 4. And so on and so forth, right? But we're not done yet. Because if I run this, I run this code. Oops, sorry. Sorry. Actually, I don't have to return anything. I just have to, because we're manipulating a global variable, so I actually don't have to do anything. So I could just console.log r. If I run this, two, 5, 3, 6, 9, 4, 7. 2, 5, 3, 6, 9, 4, 7. Huh. It's the exact same. Anybody have any guesses on why? Yeah, exactly, Roberta. What's happening is it works perfectly fine, right? This swaps with this, right? So these are swapped. Then it iterates and this swaps with this. And then this swaps with this. Then we get here. And it's the same, so it's gonna like swap. But then because we say, hey, go all the way through the length, then it's going to come here and it's gonna re-swap these. And so because it's re-swapping, it's just swapping them back. Oh, 1 second. Sorry, my dog's having an issue. Give me 1 second. Sorry. Recording. Okay, so we're resuming. We just came back and realized that it was actually re-swapping, right? And so there's one little thing we have to add in order for this to stop. Basically, we want it to stop here, right? So what is something we can do to make it just to, in our for loop, it's a, hey, when you get to this point, let's go ahead and stop. A break. Okay, we could do that. When would we, so we could have a conditional in here and say if, like what would that break look like? If I equals 3 would work, but remember, what if we want this to be dynamic? What if there's 100 in there and we want to be able to swap it? Right, so we want to make sure we're not using actual numbers, but part of it. Yeah. If I is length minus 2, or sorry, over 2. So I could say if I equals sum r length over 2, then I want to break. This would work. Let's test it. For those of you just joining, we're finishing up our office hour thing. We'll go over it. My dog had a little bit of an issue, so I had to hop out. Doesn't equal. That's probably not going to work, right? Because if we think about it, if there is 7 values, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, the length over 2 is 3.5. So I is never going to reach 3.5, right? So what else could we do? There's another thing. I don't think this is a bad idea. We could do a while, but that's now a nested loop. What if, what's the, in our for loop, what else allows us to end our for loop? So we could do this break. But think about sort of from the creation. That if it was 3, or so in this case, 3.5 is the half. What if we did that here? Yeah, exactly. Now we're saying, hey, if I is less than sum array dot length over 2. So if I is less than 3.5, let's stop. It's a great idea. So we get, I'm just going to comment this out. Now, if we come here, we got to get our array in there. We run it. Oh, I didn't console log, sorry. I run it. Still get 2, 5, 3, 6, 9, 4, 7. Let's do this. Let's see. It might just be in our console call. So let's do this. And then we'll get started with class. Oh, duh. How stupid. Anybody see my issue? So I'm saying I have my array. Here are my pseudocode. The code's fine. Guys, I never call my function to run it. So all I'm doing is I'm declaring this. I have a function. And then I'm console logging array. So it's never even running this. So let me get rid of this. So let's test it. I think our code was right. We could just say new RIP and then we say array. Now let's test it. I gotta actually call my function first. And what told me that is whenever I was trying to console log inside of my function, this is like a problem solving, and it didn't do anything. That was my indicator. Why is it not entering my function, right? Because no matter what, even on the first one, it should at least do that. So that way, that's kind of how I problem solve that. So now if I save this and I run it, hey, we get 7496946. That's incorrect. It should be 7496. 7496352. So let's go through this one more time. We said -I here, but we didn't say -I here. Right, because I gotta to swap them, I've got to go back and forth. So it did only do half. But it's because when we're keeping track of our temp, right? But we didn't change the other ones because we didn't reassign this value. Now if I come here and I run it, 7496352. Okay. So we have officially reversed an array in place with this code right here. Any questions? And then we're going to get started with lecture. We did it. Yeah, we did it. Did that make sense or did that confuse you guys? Did it help? Okay. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording here for office hour.